my name is Matt, and welcome to Tech House. We have a fairly interesting one here. I want to find out if the Alienware 13 R2 is currently a better buy than the Alienware 13 R3. Let's find out. The 13 to 14 inch market of portable gaming computers in the last few years has gotten more competitive than ever. There are a lot of different choices from almost every manufacturer. MSI makes their GS43, Razer makes its signature Razer Blade, and Gigabyte offers its very well priced Aero 14. But a heavyweight in the last few years has been the Alienware 13. This past winter, the 13 inch got a third revision to its design and specifications. These new computers have some pretty drastic changes, from a Pascal series graphics card to a whole new design. But is it better? Let's find out. Before I get into specs, I want to talk about how I've split this video up into a few different categories. We'll have design, display, audio, battery, and of course, gaming. The Alienware 13 R2 I have here is one of the last R2 configurations sold. It has an i7-6500U processor, 16GB of DDR3 RAM, a 256 solid-state drive, and it also has a QHD Plus display with a NVIDIA GTX 965M graphics card with 4GB of DDR5 virtual RAM. The Alienware 13 R3 I have here is one of the higher tier configurations. It has an Intel i7-6700HQ processor, a quad-core unlike the dual-core U processor in the previous model, 16GB of DDR4 RAM, a 512GB SSD, and a 2560x1440 OLED touch display. The graphics card in this model is a NVIDIA GTX 1060 with 6GB of virtual RAM. First up, let's get into design. The Alienware 13 R2 build quality is very nice, but it's something you should expect from a computer that costs $1,400. The whole unit feels very solid and doesn't give off that sometimes plasticky feel that some other brands have. Part of its solid feel though certainly comes from its big weight and thickness. This isn't a light 13-inch computer, and if you're looking for that, you probably need to look elsewhere. The body is about 24 centimeters in width, or just under 1 inch with the lid closed, and my unit weighed just about 5 pounds. The nice thing about this is it's a large array of ports. You won't need to carry around a dongle adapter for this one, which seems to be the new trend these days. On the left side, it has the AC adapter, a Kingston lock slot, one USB 3.0 port with power share, a mic slot, and a headphone mic combo with one of the two speakers. On the right side, we have the Ethernet port, another USB 3.0, a USB Type-C port, and the second speaker. But we're still not done, because they also managed to fit 2 more ports on the back, an HDMI port and the Alienware graphics amplifier. This computer is definitely a shower, and if you're going for a professional look, you probably want to look elsewhere. It has 2 light-up strips on the back panel, as well as the signature light-up Alienware head logo. On this model, the trackpad does not light up like it does on the R3 Alienware, but the keys and Alienware logo on the front all have customizable lights. But we'll get to that shortly. The unit has 2 fans on the bottom visible through 2 grills, and 2 fans on the back. The keyboard feels great to type on and has very little flex. The trackpad was a little slow for me at first, but after some adjusting felt very smooth. The one complaint I do have about that trackpad is its very rough texture. It's not glossy like a lot of the trackpads I'm used to and the ones you see in stores today, but this is probably just personal. I thought I'd mention it anyway. The hinge feels very sturdy but does wobble when using the touchscreen on this configuration. The Alienware 13 R3 keeps up with the build quality from the last model and still feels very solid and well built. The body is made out of a nice magnesium alloy just like it was in the R2. The weight though is slightly heavier at 5.4 pounds and the thickness is around 24 inches. It's not a very light computer for its relative size, but a large portion of that probably comes from its new design. The body no longer cuts into the side hinges and instead it has a big booty with fans that jut off the back. The hinges move forward and the Alienware power button was moved from the middle to the far right. In an age of depleting ports though, Alienware here has got you covered. We'll start from the left side where we have a USB 3.0 port, a mic in, headphone mic combo, and the first speaker. On the right side we have a USB 3.0 port, a USB Type-C port, and the second speaker. In this model though, most of the ports were moved to the back, and from right to left we have the Ethernet port, a mini display port, full HDMI out, Thunderbolt port, and the Alienware graphics amplifier, as well as the AC adapter in. The addition of the Thunderbolt port should make this unit compatible with the Razer core, as well as the Alienware amplifier, which is a plus. The lighting has changed on this model too. The computer no longer has strips of light that go down the back, but it does now boast a light-up trackpad and a 4-zone light-up keyboard, as well as a light-up logo. The unit has fan grills on the bottom similar to the R2, but now also has those big fan grills that stick off the back of the computer's tailside. The trackpad in the R3 is much more smooth than it was in the R2 and resolved many of the issues I had with the hard textured surface. The keyboard has even less flex, which I didn't think was possible, and the hinge still moves a little when the touchscreen is pressed. The display in the R2 unit is not an OLED, so the colors aren't nearly as flashy, but it's still very good. The model has a QHD Plus display with a brightness of quoted at 400 nits. In my testing, it never really got this bright and ended up getting somewhere around 320 nits. The screen though is still a great IPS panel and is visible from very far extremes. My oh my, this computer's display is absolutely beautiful. If you've seen others review this unit, you'll know it's one of the first things they talk about, and it really is amazing. The OLED technology here makes the colors pop in a way that I can't explain unless you see it yourself. The greens are very green, the blue's very blue, and it looks a lot like those TVs you see at Best Buy that cost upwards of $2,500. The glossy finish is nice, but it's not great in the sun, and it doesn't share that reflective coating that some of the other MacBook laptops have. This computer's sRGB color gamut was a ground-shaking 220%, which is ridiculous for a laptop this size. The screen did not quite get as bright as the Alienware R2, but it was still very nice at around 245 nits. The audio on the Alienware 13 R2 was pretty good, but it lacked a lot of the bass that the Alienware R3 has. On my unit, every time the audio would start, I would hear a small pop noise that didn't affect the sound quality but was still a little worrying. Let's take a look and listen to how that sounds. The Alienware 13 R3's audio was leaps and bounds better than the R2, with a louder overall quality and a bass that was so good I thought the sound was coming from my Sonos speaker, which is hooked up in the other room. There were no popping noises this time as well, which is a huge plus for me. Now for just a quick 1-2 comparison, and we'll move on to battery. The R2 13-inch had a much better battery life than its successor. Even with its QHD Plus display, the computer got an impressive 4 hours and 55 minutes on PC 8 Mark running the creative test for professionals and experts at a display brightness of 30%. Not bad. The R3's battery life was much less impressive. Now, this is understandable given its better GPU and a quad-core processor, but it shut down after 2 hours and 35 minutes running the same PC 8 Mark creative test for professionals and experts at a brightness of 30%. Now, in terms of bundled software, I ended up grouping both together here. They both came with the same Alienware command center, which allows the user to change the color lights to their desired choice. The keyboard is split into 4 zones and has the ability to either pulse or change between light variants. Now for the reason you're all probably here, the gaming. The Alienware 13 R3 has a few big changes under the hood. This is the quad-core i7 processor, compared to the U processor here, and the new NVIDIA GTX 1060 graphics card. This is a comparison to the 965M mobile graphics card we have in the R2 unit. Now, I'm hoping in this next test that we see a pretty large performance boost in the new R3 with the Pascal series graphics card. The R2 with the 965M was put under a few different tests. Every one of these tests was performed at 1080p. The first test we ran was 3D Mark's Skydiver test, and the computer scored a cool 10,959, which is better than 30% of the tested computers. Then we ran the Firestrike test, which tested the computer's graphical strength with a score of 4,522, better than 22% of the tested computers. And finally, we ran Unigen's Heaven and received a score of 39.8 frames per second. But what about real world? Well, I was able to play Overwatch comfortably at 1080p on high settings with VSync, somewhere around 56 to 59 frames per second. Doom ran worse on this model with a high setting at a passable 30-ish frames per second, while in Ultra it was unplayable in the mid-20s. Props to Alienware though for managing the thermals very well. The computer's fans only started kicking into high gear after about 15 minutes of play. The Alienware 13R3 is VR ready right out of the box. And before I get into results, I do want to mention that on the website you can also get a 1050 and 1050 Ti model, but you will see significant drops in performance. All the tests here were run at 1080p. First up, we have 3D Mark Skydiver test, which scored an average of 22,588, better than 82% of the PCs tested. Then we ran Firestrike, which resulted in a score of 9,728, better than 69% of the computers tested. Unison Heaven with the same settings gave us a score of 95 frames per second, and Overwatch ran at 1080p with ultra graphics at a solid 60 frames per second. I also ran Doom here, and the computer was able to achieve ultra settings at the monitor's refresh rate of 60 frames per second almost constantly. The fans on the model did not ramp up over time, and even on the highest settings, I didn't see much throttling. Both computers are still a great buy, and they both have their benefits, but if you were to put me on this spot and ask me which one to buy right now, I would tell you to go buy the Alienware 13R3. The Pascal series of GPUs performs so much better than last gen's mobile variant of the 900s that for a purely graphic standpoint alone, it's not even a competition. The R3 wins by a long shot. If you were planning on using this computer for other purposes, I would still crown the R3 the winner. The body felt a little nicer and the screen is stunning. The battery life being worse could prove a bigger issue, but as long as you can make room for the larger than normal AC adapter, it's a good fit. Thank you for watching my video if you made it all the way through. Expect more reviews weekly, and if you're interested in a comparison between the Razer Blade 2015 and the Razer Blade 2016, let me know. This is my first video on the channel and actually my first video ever, so I know there's a lot of kinks to work out. Please leave me comments in the descriptions saying what I can fix here. But if you liked the video, give me a like, and if you want to subscribe for more, go ahead and subscribe. Have a good one.